So, Toshidek to everyone. Can you hear English speakers? Yom Tov Rinpoche said, it's a good day. So the subject of the next few days is the Mahamudra. And Rinpoche wanted to begin with rejoicing for all the immense effort that you have put into organizing this course and also for the participants who have come here. So according to my plan, when we dealing with Mahamudra, is to speak about emptiness, because the meaning of Mahamudra is emptiness. So as for the view of emptiness, there are different schools of thought in Buddhism. So when we go from the lower schools to the higher schools, so the view of emptiness, which is dependent arising, becomes more and more subtle as you go up the schools. So this was also the subject of the teaching that we spoke about in the first teaching that Rinpoche taught about the two truths. So when we deal with the view of emptiness, we will deal with it from the Madhyamika Prasangika schools of thought. Prasangika in Buddhist philosophy deals with many explanations and reasoning for the emptiness, and its view of emptiness is very subtle. So in the Tibetan, there are many different schools. There's the Nyingma, the Kadamba, the Kagyu, the Gelug, and all these traditions, they deal with different schools of thought, and they mainly deal with the Prasangika school of thought. So this is in general, in short. This is the view of emptiness according to the, in relation to the object. This is what the Mahamudra deals with. The Mahamudra deals with the object, but also with the subject. So when this is explained according to the Mahamudra tradition, so the main thing is with dealing, also the Tantra or the Mantrayana, they are the ones who deal mostly with Mahamudra. In the Sutra, there are specific ways of thinking that relate to the mind as the Vajra mind. For example, the protector Nagarjuna, who is one of the great scholars that interpreted the teachings of the Buddha, and he related to the. So this is very unique in the Sutra tradition, the Vajra mind. Mainly the Mantrayana deals with the Vajra mind. So in the mantra, the mantra vehicle that deals with a view of emptiness, it's not, this mind is very subtle mind, it is not a gross mind. So this mind has got different labels, has different names. In the Sutra, in the Sakya, in the Nyingma, in the Kagyu, and the Gelug. So this subtle mind has got different names in the different traditions. But Rinpoche is saying that actually all these names, all these schools have got actually the same understanding of the subtle mind. So, in relation to the object, like we said, the object is emptiness, and the mind which we're dealing with is a very subtle mind. According to the Sutra school, it is an extremely subtle mind. So this is what the Buddha taught. When he got to complete and full enlightenment. So he has shown us the way to get to the Buddha state. So the key for it, the basis, is to develop love, compassion, and the mind of enlightenment, which is called bodhicitta. So the perfection, the practicing of the 6 perfections, and then gradually we get rid of the obscurations which obscure the mind, and finally the realization of emptiness clarifies the cognitive obscurations. And when we go stage after stage to get rid of these cognitive obscurations, finally we can also attain enlightenment, complete and perfect enlightenment. So this is what we are dealing with and meditating upon here. In order to practice Mahamudra, we need a basis, and the basis is by meditating about the mind of enlightenment, which is based on love and compassion. We also need to develop renunciation in order to practice Mahamudra as it should be practiced. So first we need the basis. So we're going to spend 5 days together, and in these 5 days, now we're beginning with the first teaching. The first teaching of the 5 days will be together. So we will participate in Dharma teachings. And as it is said in Buddhist society, and probably it has come from India, but in the Tibetan society they say that there are two actions which are important, the action at the beginning and the action at the end. So these two actions are important. So the first action is setting the motivation to having a good intention, and the last action is dedicating all the positive things that we have done together for a purpose. So during 5 days we're going to listen to the Mahamudra teaching, which are taught by JHADO Rinpoche. And when we listen to teachings, we do not only want to put it all into separate divisions, but we should have the proper motivation. In order to think of the right motivation, to know what the right motivation is, we think that we're listening to the teaching in order to tame our mind. At the moment, our mind is obscured. We have afflictive emotions. So we want to practice the mind to tame it. But we don't want to do this only for ourselves, but we should also acknowledge that we live in a community, in the human community. So therefore we should make sure that our motivation is not directed only towards this life, not for the purpose of only this life, but there are many people around us who engage only in activities of this life, but they're not only human beings, they're also animals and others. And actually, in some aspects, they have better abilities than ours. For example, for protecting heat and cold, there's some animals who've got fur better than ours. They have greater skills in finding sources of food. They have greater skill than us in finding a place or a shelter, a place to live. So some animals have got a greater ability than ours as beings, as human beings. But what is unique about us is our intelligence that we can use not only in this life, but also in for future lives, so that we live our lives. And not only thinking about food and clothing and social connections with others. And we don't use this great intelligence that we have only for this life. It will be a shame. We have the ability to use our intelligence to bring eternal happiness, not only for ourselves, but also for all sentient beings. So we want to make an effort in our practice. We want to make sure that our lives are meaningful. And we have the way to do it. We have the way of generating the altruistic mind that cares about others, and by setting a pure motivation. So this is what we want to do at the beginning of the teaching and the next few days too. So of course we will not going to speak about business or war or divisions between traditions and religions. This is not what we want to discuss. What we want to discuss is what we want to do is to set a proper motivation which aims to benefit others. So we want to develop altruism. This is the first action. And at the end of the teachings, we want to develop all the good things that we have developed, collected for the benefit of all others. So we will start today. Rinpoche wants to share with us his plan for the next few days. So today the plan is to start with introducing the Dharma in a general way, and from tomorrow we will discuss the main things. So in order to discuss the main things, Rinpoche wants to explain the view of the lack of the selflessness and of emptiness according to Madhyamika Prasangika. We will not deal with the other school of thoughts in Buddhism, but mainly the Madhyamika Prasangika. So Rinpoche will explain how to negate the self according to the Madhyamika Prasangika. After that, Rinpoche will explain how to set minds which are subtler. So now usually when we live, we have gross minds. So in meditation we want to set subtler and subtler minds. So tomorrow Rinpoche will discuss the view. So he will explain objects, and after that how we develop subtler and subtler minds, and after that he will start the Mahamudra teachings. Because after Rinpoche gave us the explanation about the view and the subtler minds, and then he can go into the Mahamudra and show us the specific things that he explained about the view, and he'll say this is this meditation and that is that meditation on the basis of what he taught us. So, and that's how these subjects will be clearer. Will we finish the text? Rinpoche isn't sure, but this is the plan. The Dharma friends in Israel, they invite teachers from different traditions, the Kagyu, the Nyingma, the Sakya, and the Gelugpa. So this is excellent. You learn different teachings from different traditions. So this is kind of beyond division. So when Rinpoche explains the view of emptiness, we want to listen to his teachings and to check whether this understanding is suitable to the understanding that we have of the different schools of thought in Buddhism. According to the Sakya, according to the Nyingma, according to the Gelug tradition, is this explanation suitable with the different traditions? Is there a specific source for these teachings that we listen? So all these things we want to pay attention to, so that in the future we can make sure that we control our own personal spiritual progress. So Rinpoche said that he's not sure that we can complete this year the whole text, but we will do what we can, and the next we're left for future. Every day Rinpoche will leave a question and answer, like 15 minutes. Rinpoche will try to his best ability to answer our questions. He isn't sure if he has the capability of doing so, but he will surely try. It could be he won't have enough time or enough ability, but he will do his best. So the introduction is finished. Rinpoche is saying the drink is very hot. So I want to recite the Heart Sutra. So in every session we will recite the Heart Sutra once. So every day in the morning, including today, even though it's afternoon, we will recite together the Heart Sutra. So we have this booklet. In Hebrew it's on page 16. Let's see where it's in. So Rinpoche has spoken about the Heart Sutra. It's on page 19 in English. So if we're Dharma practitioners, the Mahayana Dharma practitioners, if we practice Dharma from the Tantra tradition, so we want to make sure that with our practice, for example, reading the Heart Sutra, we collect the collections that we need, so we get blessings, we eliminate obscurations on the path. So if we develop this habit of reading the sutras, gradually we will even be able to learn them off by heart. As it is said in some of the writings, all the Buddhas attain complete enlightenment independent on the sutra of the Heart Sutra. So Rinpoche wants to begin every day with reciting the Heart Sutra. We have it on page 19 in English.
במעשה המעמיק של שמומות החוכמה, ויקונן חמשת המצרפים האלה כריקים מעצם טבעם. ואז מכוח הבודה, אמרת על שריפות הנכבד לבודיסטווה מהסטווה, היה אבליקשווה רב העוצמה. כיצד יתאמן אותו בן השושלת הרוצה לעסוק במעשה המעמיק של שלמות החוכמה? מי שאמר זאת, שיב כך הבודיסטווה מהסטווה, היה אבליקשווה רב העוצמה, ושריפות הנכבד. שריפות בן השושלת ובת השושלת, הרוצים לעסוק במעשה המעמיק של שלמות החוכמה, התבוננו על תומה בחמשת המצרפים האלה כריקים מעצם טבעם. החומר ריק, הריקוד לחומר. אין ריקוד מלבד חומר, ואף אין חומר מלבד ריקוד. כמו כן תחושה, הבחנה, גורמים מורכבים ותודעה ריקים. שריפות רק כך כל התופעות הן ריקות, נטולות מאפיינים, מבוססת על שלמות החוכמה ושועים בה. משום שבשלמותם אין מערפלים, אין בהם פחד. כשבפו כליל מעבר לשיווי, הם מגיעים לשלמות של החלוק מעבר לצער. להסתמך על שלמות החוכמה, אם כל הבודות שוכנים בשלושת הזמנים לבודהיות שלמה לחלוטין, והארה שלמה נפלאת. לפיכך המנטרה של שלמות החוכמה, המנטרה בעליית הדעה, המנטרה שנעלה ממנה, המנטרה המשתווה למה שאין שווה לו, המנטרה המשמינה כלי שווה בכל הסרט, משום שאינה שקרית, גתי אמיתית. מנטרה שלמות החוכמה נאמרת, חייתה, גתיתה, פדגתה, פלסמגתה בודיסטורה. שהריפוטרה על הבודיסטה מעשה להתאמן כך בשלמות החוכמה המעמיקה. רציצה הבגבן מהייצוג המדיטטיבי הזה ונשא מילות שבח לבודיסטה מעשה אריה אבל ותשבר הרב עוצמה. טוב מאוד בין השושלת, זה כך, בין השושלת זה כך. יש לעסוק בשלמות החוכמה המעמיקה כפי שציינת, ואתה תגעת אותך הם ישמחו בך. משהעניק הבגבן את אמילתו כך, סמכו שהריפוטרה הנכבד, הבודיסטה מעשה אריה אבל ותשבר הרב עוצמה. הסובבים האלה כולם, בצירוף האישיות השמימיות, נהנות, האישיות השמימיות הן חצת, והן דרה, משום כל שאמר הבגבן. אוקיי, אז עכשיו אנחנו נגיש את בקשת
So now we will offer the mandala in order to request JHADO Rinpoche these teachings.
Rinpoche, Riwo, Pasamgishi, Dojoya, Mamopaya, Loto, Kolo Rinpoche, Novo Rinpoche, Tomo Rinpoche, Lobo Rinpoche, Lombo Rinpoche, Tanjo Rinpoche, Mago Rinpoche, Teje Moye, Bumba, Gema, Chema, Luma, Gama, Metoma, Nadema, Chichama, Nima, Dawa, Rinpoche, Du, Chole, Namba, Yahweh, Gyase, Usola, Dami, Benjo, Bunso, Soba, Matsawa, Meba, Sanhe, Owa, Jida, Chichen, Sawa, Kangyupa, Chebe, Vandela, Madamba, Nanda, Keba, Duya, Yonzon, Tebe, Nanda, Nange, Kenso, Jado, Chukube, Yone, Pa, Sambo, Shenane, Teba, Chembo, Sunjo, Samo, Shuwe, Yundu, Shinkambu, Agyu, Tuje, Joe, Dondo, Shesuso, Shene, Kyando, Magyu, Nanke, Tatanya, Besenchen, Tamchela, Tuse, Wachembo, Gone, Chingira, Su, Sashi, Bergi, Junshi,
Let's refuge breath. So many teachers have come to visit here in Israel, and you have listened to many teachings. So of course you have got a great knowledge of Buddhism. But still, if we ask ourselves, what is the essence of the teachings of the Buddha? In one of the sutras of self-liberation, do not commit any negative actions. Perform perfect virtual actions. This is the teaching of the Buddha. Subdue your mind thoroughly. So we want to develop a complete virtue, to acquire complete virtue. We want to tame our mind completely. These are the teachings of the Buddha. Is this our understanding of the essence of the teaching of the Buddha? Many people think that the essence of being a Buddhist is to visit the temples, to have statues or to show respect to them. But these are actually secondary, they're not the main thing in the Buddhist tradition. What is essential is in the verse that Rinpoche recited. So the meaning of what we mentioned now is very vast. His Holiness the Dalai Lama says that all the teachings of the Buddha are put into 84,000 teachings. They're so vast. But still, if we ask ourselves what are the essential principles of the teachings of the Buddha, we can sum them up into two characteristics, and that is the behavior, the practice, which is a behavior which doesn't harm the other, non-violence. This is from the behavior, the conduct point of view. From the other point of view, it's dependent arising. So the first characteristic of our behavior, which is non-harmful. So if we can be of benefit to the other, it will be great. But if we can't be of benefit to the other, so the minimum is to refrain from causing them harm. So this is the first aspect of the teaching of the Buddha, which is non-violent. And the other aspect is the dependent arising view. So if we go back to the verse that Rinpoche recited, it said we shouldn't do negative actions, and we want to develop virtue, perfect virtue. So these two lines speak about non-harmful actions, non-violence. On the third verse, says to completely subdue our mind. In order to completely subdue our mind, we use the view of dependent arising, and it has a few levels. The gross levels in which we understand how things come into existence in dependence on other things. On a subtle level, we understand that things are existent in dependence on a label, mere label. So this is the third verse, the third line that the verse speaks about, to tame your mind completely. The second line of the verse says, to cultivate perfect virtuous actions. So what's the meaning of this line? What is this perfect virtue? How can we attain it? How can we develop it? So we do that with by doing actions that are done for the purpose of others. So if we look at the way that we behave at the moment, many actions that we do, we find that they are motivated by selfishness, with an attitude that seeks for one's own purpose, one's own benefit. So in order to develop perfect virtue, we want our practice not to be linked to this selfishness, so that our actions are not done only for ourselves, but completely aspires to benefit others. Like we said in the first two lines, to refrain from negative actions and develop complete virtue. Even though we cannot be of complete benefit to others, the minimum is that we should try not to harm others. So if we manage to develop this intention of being of benefit to others, so then we can practice generosity, morality, patience, etc. So when our intention is to behave in a particular way in order to be of benefit to others, so we use others as for a purpose in order, let's say, to develop morality of refraining from the 10 non-virtuous actions. So we use others in order to have a reason for practicing generosity, as Shantideva wrote in his Bodhisattva way of life. It's a generosity that wants to give everything to others and to attain the perfect generosity. So in order to practice it to this level, we want to make sure that our practice has got the basis of the great compassion in it, which in itself is the cause for enlightenment. So in our practice, we want to have great compassion and bodhicitta, the uncontrived, in an uncontrived way. This is the supreme way. So even if we didn't get to this level yet, that our compassion and the mind of enlightenment are uncontrived. So we want to try and have them in our mind, even if it's in a non-natural way at the moment. So the third verse the third line in this verse says to completely tame your mind. So how do we completely tame our mind? We do it by developing the view of dependent arising. And this view has got a few levels, as Rinpoche said, like the dependence on causes and conditions, phenomena arises independent on parts, or dependence on labeling, mere labeling. So we use this view in order to tame our mind completely. And as the Buddha said, when he attained enlightenment, he gave us the nectar of getting to complete enlightenment. This nectar in Tibetan means dutsi. So the Tibetan has got different syllables. So every syllable has got its own. It's got its own meaning. So when we put two syllables together, there's a new meaning. So the word for nectar is dutsi. So the first syllable is du, and du means the taming, or getting rid of any of the things that are that is not conducive. So the obstacles and obscuring states of mind. So these have been completely gotten rid of. They were completely tamed. This is what du means. And the second syllable, which means si, which is like a medicine or a treatment. So the meaning of this syllable is developing all the qualities, like virtue of merit. So in the second line of this verse we said that we want to develop complete virtue. So we want to do anything which is positive, which will bring to the development of qualities and wisdom in our mind. So actually, this meaning of nectar, the nectar has got two meanings. From the negative point of view, we want to get rid of everything that doesn't work properly. From the positive point of view, we want to develop anything that is good, which is conducive. So in this way, Tibetan has got quite a, Dutsi has got quite a great meaning, nectar. In Sanskrit we say Amrita, and Rinpoche wonders whether Amrita has also got so much meaning in Sanskrit to get rid of everything which is negative and develop the positive.
딜레지 조절 써야 되기 아니 유리장 타봐 지리 넘버 타데 라면 저거 선지 취기 다음에 템바 어디지 조절 타고 조절 세 디강들이야 메소나 신에 저버터를 탈루기 그죠 띵사부시라 차그 조절 야청부시라 차그로 봤어 다들 사실 조절 왜세 주마체 생각이 다 왜세 주마체 생각이 딱바당 뭐이 수체에 엔 딱게 되지 말바스 주마체 딱바세 티 말바스 다 루고 많이 봐 균쟁지기 통만 매번이 용 타만 가봐 균쟁지기 도시 비자 엔 루고 주마체 사 주마체 이면은 주마체 된다고 와세티 가발로 보고 했으나 아니 유동은 마세 유체 시가 신도타와 세자 다 단단하게 처진 동생세 세동수도세 어떤 엄청 못사는 어떤 유체 시가 신도타와 그런 신도팀에 그에메바 어떤 왜세 된다가지 아니 균기 따봐 누만 제가 따고도 말했대 그러니까 땅을 이수 제가 따고도 말했대 균기 사도 누만 제가 그래서 누만 제가 어디 가르를 수윤도 비시 그걸 써가 유라네 셰자자는 도를 주고 그걸 숨바티 이제 또 어때게요 그때 그걸 통보를 그걸 봐야죠 그걸 타내죠 저도 공격이 원도 저 그걸 타면 저제도 말했지 유라네 시작은 그걸 타면 저제가 딱딱 그거였다 와나 텔리아 이게 텔리아 유라네 시작자고 뒤시고 있는 도스 어떻게 좀 우수 잡고 해야 되겠어요 간단히 맞아 상하냐면 제스는 상하디 상기기 살아 뉴단데 가르세 있는 지바 봉다 누가 차지 지바 봉다 누가 차지 계획했어 유동관이 차지를 깨져 말 돌아오는 시대에 삽시대다 그때 다가나게 맞도 될 차다 영화 유체 외센드만 제대로 보지 아니 모두 맞아봐 모두 그게 뭐네 아니 시드 넘버 다시 인연벌이야 아니 그래서 시드 유로지 여자가 지다 소리가 또 어떻게 하지 여자지 들리지 네 진짜 들려 여자가 대동예매스 우리는 대동예매스 하지 뭐 유진 대화 좀 있어 자자 좀 보스 사자 있는 설동 순주스 저제 있는 가다 룸스 어떤 도스 왔어 어떤 데스 이게 저저 왜세 누마제 사이드 빅도 왔어 사실 저저는 딱 뭔데 드지티레스 랑 셈 용수 셈 두단 테레스 근데지기 셈 마투와 너무 받다 시제주가 용수도 말로 대배 권네 땐도 시와 터가 있는 가서 랑 셈 용수도 사이드 안 따라딩 잘하게 되면 레슨 거기 왔어 딱 뒤에 랑 셈 용수도 사이드 계좌 차진 털 로이 찾아치고가 로고도 삽시트에서 디마체스에 차진이 털만 시에는 밥사 가봐 그래도 오마토 또 연구도 가봐 밥도 있으면 마르티 등으로 어디 있어요 그래서 디마체스에 어디 간다 밥도 왔어
What's the Buddha attained enlightenment? He referred to his enlightenment. He said that his enlightenment is profound, peaceful, which has got free from elaborations. and has got clear light, which is uncompounded. So this is what he called nectar, the Buddha. So when we look at the teachings of the Buddha, one of the things that His Holiness the Dalai Lama said is that these teachings have the ability to get rid of the things which cause us unhappiness, which are not concordant with our happiness. So the Buddha spoke about, after he attained enlightenment, about getting to the place which is profound, peaceful, free from obscurations, and has got the clear light, which is uncompounded. So after that he began turning the wheels of Dharma, including the mantra, the secret mantra. So the Buddha taught the Hinayana, the Mahayana, and also the mantra. And all the things that the Buddha taught are within these three, the Hinayana, the Mahayana, and the Tantrayana. So then he turned the first wheel of the Dharma, and he taught the peace, the profound and the peaceful Dharma. So in the first turning of the wheel, the Buddha began teaching the view of selflessness. He taught selflessness, which is profound, a profound view, which brings to peace. So in turning the second wheel of the Dharma, the Buddha taught the freedom from elaborations. So when he taught the first, when he turned the first wheel of the Dharma, the profound and the peaceful Dharma, he explained how we can get rid of the negative, the afflictive obscurations from our mind, and in that way to attain peace. So in the second turning of the wheel, the Buddha taught the Mother Sutras, which are the perfection of wisdom. The Buddha didn't only teach how we can get rid of the afflictive obscurations, but also the way of getting rid of the cognitive obscurations. So we taught the selflessness of the individual, of the person, but also the selflessness of phenomena. So in this way, finally, the Buddha taught in a complete way all the freedom of obscurations, which bring to the complete and perfect enlightenment. So by getting rid of the two obscurations, the afflictive and the cognitive obscurations, we can attain a complete and perfect enlightenment. So the Buddha also spoke about the clear light which is uncompounded. So what does uncompounded mean? When we usually use this word uncompounded, we speak about a division in phenomena. So there are compounded and non-compounded phenomena. So that which are non-compounded are permanent, they don't change. But here when we use the term the clear light which is uncompounded, we do not mean uncompounded phenomena as we said in these two divisions, but rather the meaning is different here. What we mean in uncompounded is that something which is non-adventitious, is something which isn't stained, stains of transitory stains, but rather it is primordially it is something which is pure. It is pure from inherently, from its naturally. So this is what uncompounded means. The other meaning of the meaning of the word clear light. Clear light is just wisdom. So it's clear and knowing. Mere cognition and knowledge, that is what. So it's an entity which is clear and knowledge. So this mind of clear light is not stained by stains which are temporary. So when we discuss this subject of an uncompounded phenomenon, so the mind, it means that the mind is unstained with adventitious stains. So we explain it in the Sutra, the Tathagata Sutra. So the Buddha taught this in the third turning of the wheel, and the main sutra that usually is spoken in the third turning of the wheel is the Sutra of Unraveling Thought. It explains the meaning, exposes the meaning of the Buddha, but this isn't the only sutra which was taught in the third teaching of the Dharma. Another teaching that was taught, the Sutra of the Buddha nature. The Buddha taught the nature of the Buddha, Buddha nature, which is uncompounded, because the stains, without which stains the mind, are not within the mind. They're temporary. So the clear light mind has different names in different Buddhist traditions. For example, in the Gelug tradition, it is called the bliss and emptiness mind, or supreme bliss and emptiness. So in different traditions of the Buddhism, it is called, this mind is called Mahamudra, or clear and emptiness. In another tradition, Kadam, in a different tradition, is Kadam Ludup. Kadam is like a primordial, and it is also spontaneous. And the Buddha also described this mind as being a nectar. So that nectar has the meaning of getting rid of all the negative things and developing all the positive things. So when we put everything that we said together into one unit, to one explanation, then the Buddha turned the three turning of the wheels, and when he described the enlightenment which he attained, he said that it is a profound, a peace, free from obscurations and clear. And this is the nectar. So when we put all of this together into the turning of the wheel of the Dharma, which which the Buddha taught gradually so that we can completely train our mind. So finally we get to this nectar, which all the negative things are dispelled and all the positive things are attained. This is the meaning of completely taming one's mind. And taming the mind, this complete taming of mind is done by clear light mind. So we have mentioned a few terms which are rather complicated. And if you ask yourselves, what's the purpose of using so many terms? So first, Buddha taught these terms because there were practitioners that had different predispositions. So when the Buddha taught the Dharma, he taught different explanations and different terms. So we use terms like clear light, something which is uncompounded, the cognitive obscurations and the afflictive obscurations. So we use different terms, and the reason for using all these terms is because we come from different backgrounds and we have different tendencies, so we get different teachings. In one of the teachings of the Buddha that Rinpoche has recited, a verse which which says that relates to the body, speech, and mind of the Buddha. So the Buddha is the one who has a body, speech, and mind. So in the state of the Buddha, the body, speech, and the mind of Vajra are called Vajra, and they're united. In particular, there's the Guya Samaja root tantra, which speaks about a body which is in the nature of the mind. So relating to the body, speech, and mind of the Buddha as being the body, speech, and mind of the Vajra, it's not only in the secret mantra, but also in the Sutra tradition, in a text called the King of Prayers. So it says in one of the verses, in each atom there's a Buddha who is surrounded by bodhisattvas, bodhisattva entourage. So in this sutra, the sutra says that on every atom there are Buddhas and bodhisattvas. So when we think of all the atoms which are in the galaxies, so on each one of them there is a Buddha field who is surrounded by Buddha's entourage of bodhisattvas. How is this possible? It is possible by clear light, which is uncompounded, which is united with the emptiness. So this is the state that Buddha attained in a meditative equipoise with the clear light, which is uncompounded, and the emptiness when they were united, unified. So without him needing to exit the meditative equipoise, in this way the Buddha still acts for the benefit of others. So how is it possible? Because of the unification of body and mind. So in sutra, in mantra, the unification of body and mind, the indivisibility of body and mind, this is like the subtle body and mind. This is like the basis, and they're developed into indivisibility. So this mind of clear light, which is uncompounded, we can stage after stage gradually, we can attain higher rebirths, which are higher as humans, superior, the gods, etc. And we can also attain the two states of definite goodness, of liberation and enlightenment. So this is what is explained in the verse that Rinpoche recited before. We shouldn't do any negative action. We should develop all perfect virtue. And these two lines, they help us attain higher rebirths as humans are even higher. So, and in the third line, the Buddha said to tame your mind completely. So the way we can use our practice is by practicing to attain enlightenment and to nirvana and also enlightenment. So this Rinpoche has begun with this introduction to the teaching of the Buddha.
Didi Yongma Sigre, somebody, something I'll call cigarette. That don't work at the Amjoli, sub quality, they did a marvas. Number sign gave it to Jeshe Gavium Becavia. She Namsha Dan and Bebe Gone and a Lamji chicken, Brusu chicken, Teleton and Jibumundu, Shingu, Lam Dreverumba, Jibumundu Chitus, she Lam Jibusum, took the Domshilan, coming to Sudu, Shadabi, Domshi Chambo, Domshi Limbo, what the little that Shandafa Yushas, Shilia, Maratsugi, Imagilia, Madu said, E service, E Kubet, Ilam Tame to say, Maranto, moment in the Susus, Niretsovenalia, young there, Chituas. T. Captilia, Maranto, E said they were Gabi, sent it down, you knew that Kavara red was, sent to Samsala, living was. Without the Kavachilo, Tibet in a part of the sent to the Jablo, Karkari, and some of the Yinayans, that Kodamado, Ni Koje, and Nilam Gilus, and in the Sunga Kalia, and in San Dajda, in the drums, singing the Atan, and he did the band, or that was the patron, but the Toya Pigaton, those still, the rest do us. The Mongol tongue needs to Noya do us, or Nilam Gilus, how to Goya do us, or Tendavati, Siguala Togumindu, or Kavala Togumindu. What to try to us? Gonja road of Japsha in the Kataba, or Russia to us. Oh, Tetavati, you some him to tell get it a Maredi, Oxuchi, Tandel, Dilla Tebe, Tawachi, the Tenderavas, or Tindecica, send me to Sundu Joton, Super part, Pejun to Jenny, Rodea Yetavati, to us, or T. Susinilum the Tonia, was a tragic young to us. Emptiness. Maranzu ni tubuku kablas. Maranzu ni tubuku kabla. Meet the down the Yanaya, so Tungumidu, Amdo Kaya Maldi, Datumidu, Tinde Indu, and the Pandadawa Tape, Chandar Tiki, Umajuvenala, Kadinina, Milo Missidi, Yomi Sheva Kona use. Ni tubuku kabla, Yishu Konamato, one share of the do such. What was the Sudwa, the rare read it was. Those judges, Sheva Ravati, so do I ever take it? So nearing it to another. You would was. Then he said, oh, you ever call it Sheva Ravati, Sheva Tomati, Sheva Ravadu, Padu, try everything. Seven to us. That let him by us. Ni took Kuba Leja, Habegi, things of the chile. That Chisum Thomas said, Gama, those lay, Commission, she said. Num Don Shivni Reves. That the Hegemais, the Munjan Dharmaris. Oh, that the Karra saying, Sheva Ravat, the Tama party, need to go over Legan Tarmati. What in this Sheva Shim the Tower Tedan Yam to Ju Begi, Chawa Cheni, the Nubatelia, Lungatanya Cheni, a tea, and Ludi Shaje, Tilorichi, and Ya Amashindaji Covenant Madzi.
Since Rinpoche has mentioned the unification of body and mind, so maybe we can say a few more words about it. If we ask ourselves, how is it possible in Buddhism to get to the unification of body and mind? So we can do it by using the teachings of the Buddha to check how things how do they really abide. And when we understand how things truly abide, we develop the paths. And the paths lead us to attaining results. So this explanation is very powerful. It is excellent. It gives us a very clear explanation of what are the paths that we need to go on the basis of how things are really abide in order to get to the result which we hope to attain. So beyond that, on a day-to-day level, on the basis we go through different states, um, waking, sleeping, and dreaming. So when we are awake, we have a body and we have a mind. So our body cannot go through walls. It can't go through physical things. So like these walls, they obstruct our body, but our mind can still wander to different places. So in this sense, when we look at the body and mind that we have in our waking state, we can see that our mind is unobstructed, but the body is obstructed. We cannot go through walls, etc. But when we go to sleep, and during our sleep we begin to dream, so we have a body which is unobstructed. Our body can go through walls in our dreams. There are no that the walls do not obstruct us, and even if the door is closed, the body in the dream can go out. So when we're talking about the indivisibility of body and mind, so we're talking about the mind, the very subtle mind. So this is the unification of the extremely subtle wind and mind. But we do not need to just only speak about the very subtle, these subtle states, but we can think about what happens to us in our dreams, not only in the dreams but also in deep sleep. Even if our eyes are open in this state, we will not see a thing. Even though we have ears, we do not hear in this deep sleep state. And as Chandrakirti said in the middle way, he said that in the state of sleeping, it is only the mental mind which is functioning. So that means that all the gross minds are gathered in. So we have gone through a state of being awake, of the gross minds. So all these gross minds are gathered inwardly, and they dissolve until a state that the only mind that abides is a mental mind. So it doesn't only happen, not only this happens in the process of dream, but it also happens in dying and in the moment just before death. We go through a process that is similar to this, which is all the gross minds, they dissolve inwardly, they're gathered inwardly, and then they dissolve until a state that the only mind that abides is a very subtle mind. So then we ask ourselves, so is this the end? Is it like a candle that uses all the wax, like a butter lamp? Like when the butter is used up, then there's no light? Or is there some continuation? So of course that from the point of view of Buddhism, it's not that everything ends, but rather the subtle mind, the wind, the wind is what makes the mind continue onwardly, which goes into a womb of a woman. That it enters there and then we get a new body, but we actually have the mind from the previous life. So when we look at this samsaric way, of this process, so there are different periods in this samsaric existence, which has gross unification of body and mind, but there are also specific states that there is a very subtle unification of body and mind. So this is also in our samsaric existence.
any Yellen Jenny, your dignity, as one turkey, Chingy or Marity, Taco, Chenji, Chita Chinji, Dina Zabulin, Joname, Mizu Chenji, Chita Chinji, several in the Mongo was. Koti, several union Tian, Jawangati, Kelly, Mizana, giving about me to us. Pama Jawangati Zani, Yichi made the Yangi, young men, Jawangati never did me. Young men, Jawangati told Toname, Tidiji Naya, Tina, the Uja Devatigi, Jawangati called Shushi, or those to us to go Maratsuti, Chita, Jawamata, Javachimati, Luden Shuji, Javati, Jana Dene, Matamati Reti, could never do Marvas, go Chinguji Yene, Shandaki, Tingi Orvas, Tileti Indus, go Yene Tingi Eva Indus, you send the Mongushu, Madai, or the Jawanaji, Tenyeji Yavati, the Manzi, Bay Samsh, the Bay Ashitris, cut the Yene Temperament, the men Temperament Marvas, Tileti Indus, or Shikonalia, Shavataru, Doyaji, Lungsanji, or Tileti, Yedavati. Lamgi Doki, Tabe Shevara, what to do, or Sheva Tawaji, to Tandan Mazi, Pejukin, Medayaji, Pejutai, Surgeon, or Tea Tongan in Yen, Tea Tongan in Yeva Tigi, and she to touch Tavegi, or the Juba Shi, Tagi, Yavastagi, or Total says it was, or the Nancy Tosun, Ninang, Juba Java, or Tatuyaji. Or the little Jojan Gania, never do to Yachigi, the Lamgilia, Jenny, or the Tendavati, and the touch the color, and Sanji took Chiku singing, that do to ya, or the little Yedavati, she didn't little Yedava, or Titon at the vast. Tilla, the Zubashindat in the Padux, you think that in the Shavinas, nobody in the Shavinas. Number Chebody, Condensing was, said the meeting Chibina. Oh, they do tall Yungi, Kansati, Yinchetella, T. Julia, and the kind of same thing Yinchetella, T. Gudela, Sanji Ziki Shanda Parishane, Sanali, Marchiva, Bumarchi, T. Julia, Sanji Ziki, said the Lagos. Oh, that thing is Sanji read colors, get a team. Send the Ranshingi, set up on the shade to have a new way of the Versavages. Send the Ranshi, Versava. One not at the time in Shebagi, that the need to shoot it, send up action, Sunny Karim women, clean up the Shematuya, the colors, the Mongoti, logo address. Oh, Chimandan logo was. Oh, those children, oh. Sungu to us. Oh, that tender, Sanjanashi, Ursa Sagi, Sanjan Tanji, Sanji, your Sadi, get a need on your Muris. Oh, get a ticaris, tomato, send you to need to Koyachi Yoris. Get a tical caris, send Shin to Tara, and Ranshingi Ursa, or Kuzo Chat, Tagaran Koyachi Yoris, or Tadini, send you Kuzo Chat, or Tagaran, Shigi. Then there will be something, Lunsum Moyen. Or she never, or Chadachibus, or Telesaris, Kunjirashi, Chadachis, and the Chadachibus, she Chadachim, Lamji Chadachim, Jubu Chadachibus, Pijita Sani Gede, or she Chadachos, Madame Shiden, or Tilidas.
So we have come into this life from the previous life in a process that the mind, the wind and mind, which are very subtle, have come in continuity with from the previous life. So we do not remember this. We do not remember the wind and the subtle wind and mind from our previous life, but it doesn't mean that they were not there. So many people ask, many people have got memories from their previous lives, and the the ones who can remember their previous lives, from the ones they are not necessarily born into families who believe in previous lives. So they're not always born, these people who have memories in previous lives, into families who believe in it. So actually some families, they have no interest in this, but still these incidents happen. So when we look at how we came into this life, we can think about it like we've just changed our body into a body of this current life. So we do not remember the process, but not remembering the process isn't a proof that it doesn't exist. So not remembering something doesn't mean that it hasn't happened. So when we investigate some of these stories of people who remember their previous lives, Rinpoche says that in some aspect this is the best example, the best proof to think about previous and future lives. So in any way, this process of going from one life to the other is done with a mind and wind which supports the mind. They become more and more subtle. They come from a state which is very gross into a place that is more and more subtle. And then finally, the very subtle wind and mind, they go from one life to the other. So first of all, we begin with developing the understanding and the knowledge of how things exist on the basis. So, for example, what links this life and the previous life, this subtle wind and mind, that go through a process from the previous life to the current life, and where the gross states of mind, they get dispelled until the subtlest state of the mind, it continues to the next life within a new body. So this is how things abide on the basis. So we want to rely on this knowledge in order to develop paths intentionally. So in a meditative process, we dissolve the gross states of mind in order to develop, in order to discover the subtlest states of mind. And then we want to use this subtle mind in order to realize emptiness. And if we can use this process of realizing the subtlest state of mind in order to understand emptiness, then very swiftly we can get to a state that we're free from elaborations, which all dualistic appearances, anything which is dual, they dissolve, they disappear. Duality stops to exist with a subtle state of mind. So this is another point that Rinpoche wanted to mention in relation to what we're going to deal with in the next few days. And if anyone asks themselves, why are we practicing Buddhism? What is the personal meaning for us? What is the reason for doing it? So we will start by acknowledging the fact that as sentient beings, we all experience happiness and well-being, but we also experience suffering and pain. and we want to get to the state of developing the well-being and getting rid of the suffering, because all beings have the Buddha nature. That's why we can do it. So if also worms that live under the ground, they also have the Buddha nature. So what does the Buddha nature mean? We can look at it from different perspectives, but we can check our own Buddha nature, our nature, which is clear light. And because the nature of the mind is clear light, we can develop the mind. We can develop the mind completely. At the moment, we do not understand the nature of our mind, which is clear light. But this is what we call the cognitive obscurations, not understanding the nature of our mind. This is the cognitive obscurations. And why do we not understand it at the moment? Because at the moment, the Dharmata, the nature of the mind, the suchness of the mind, is bounded by stains. So we can eliminate these obscurations, the nature of the mind. When we speak about the clear light mind, which is the subtlest mind, this is a conventional aspect of the mind. So each one of us, all sentient beings, we all have a Buddha nature. And this nature is also a nature that exists for all phenomena. As it is said in the Mahamudra, the nature of everything is Mahamudra. The basis is Mahamudra, the paths are Mahamudra, and the result is Mahamudra.
Yabati, Dutuel, Ambana, which God was. Up the 1096 Madrid, Lamji Komiaki, Titowe, the care, the Sangi, Komato Yaki, Ravaki, Mother Chedi, or Tandeti. Person Dumache, Sag, or Sen Dumachegi, or Tindeti, Ramcheli, or she charges with the Nitty, or the Tonja, Mother Coteles, the Nangati was. Or Tinde and Lamjin, but Chica, Thomas Ring and Chica, you soon have never to look at the Bares. Paprika is a ring and Chica, you such.
As Rinpoche said in the weekend course of the Two Truths, when we think about great scholars, someone who's a doctor or a professor, we can say that they still haven't developed all the knowledge that exists, but a doctor or a professor has got great knowledge. And if we ask ourselves, were they born like that, with kids with all this knowledge? So they were not born with that, but they still had the potential to develop this wisdom, the knowledge. And this is what we're talking about when we speak about the Buddha, the nature of the Buddha nature. Because since all beings have got the Buddha nature, they have the ability to accumulate knowledge. So, as we said, when we describe the mind which is merely knowing or merely dispelling, but since only knowing or only dispelling, with only knowing, only dispelling, we can develop wisdom. Sorry, it wasn't dispelling, it's clarity. So, clear and knowing. So there are two aspects: naturally present purity or potential, which means that the nature that abides naturally in the mind, and also the nature of freedom from stains. So, primordially, the nature of our mind is such that doesn't have obscurations from the mind's side, from its own nature. So the mind is free from inherent stains. And since the mind is free from these inherent stains, so because of that, we can go through a process in which we gradually get rid of the transitory, the stains of anger, attachment, and ignorance, and the others, which only temporarily they stain the mind, but they have not entered, they are not within the nature of mind. So in a process of practice, we can get rid of this attachment, aversion, and ignorance. And finally, with developing the path, we can completely get rid of these. We can completely dispel these afflictive emotions. So when we get rid of the cognitive and the there are two kinds of obscurations, so we get the most essential body, which is the Dharmakaya. This is the Dharmakaya body of the Buddha, which is the most important body of the Buddha. So the Dharmakaya has got different names, which are given in the different traditions. So there are two different names. There's the natural purity and the adventitious purity. So these are the two aspects that are given. So also the Dharmakaya is called the co-emerging body.
Is essential. The innate
essential body, the essence body. So this is another name for the Dharmakaya. So the way to attain the body, this body of the Buddha, is by using the clear light. So we use this thing which we have naturally from time without beginning. It is not something that we are creating anew. So what we want to get to is knowing this clear light, which is uncompounded. This is the basis of the Mahamudra, with which we finally attain the state of Buddhahood. So this is also the way that Gampopa spoke about the clear light in the text, which is called in English Gampopa's. So this clear light of the mind is the uncompounded basis, is the basis of the Mahamudra, which is the basis of which we'll attain in the future. So 2 hours are about to pass. I have spoken so much. So now I'll sum it up. Only 2 minutes left, Rinpoche said. So do it quickly. So we have spoken about this for almost 2 hours. So if we ask ourselves, so what do we need to practice? What is it that we need to do as Buddhists? So as Rinpoche began this teaching, avoid completely all negative action, develop virtue completely. complete virtue, tame your own mind. These are the teachings of the Buddha. So when we look at our aim, our purpose as Buddhist practitioners, if someone asks us what we do, so we begin with the first line. Do not do any negative actions. So if we do not do anything negative, by what this means, we think about the causes and the results. So the causes that we do and the results that are actions of our actions. So we want we want to avoid any negative actions, any negative karma. So by refraining from negative actions we will not go to lower births, but rather attain a higher rebirth of humans and others. So when we engage in practice, we want to do it properly. If we manage to avoid negative actions, when others will look at us and will wonder what we're practicing. So refraining from negative action. By refraining from negative actions, they will just know. We will not have to describe it verbally. It will be seen in our behavior. And as for the paths that we develop, so as the second verse, the second line says, cultivate complete, perfect actions. So this complete virtue. So we do this by developing the mind of enlightenment, which is based on great compassion. And beyond that, as it says in the third line of the verse, tame your mind completely. So taming the mind is done by realizing the selflessness of person, but not only that, but also the selflessness of phenomena, and also developing the antidotes, which is so the selflessness of phenomena is the antidote to grasping. So beyond these realizations, we want to realize the subtlest clear mind, so that and to use it to realize emptiness. So this is unifying the clear light mind and emptiness. So if we do it, then gradually we can go through all the paths which bring the perfection of the body, speech and mind and attain the state of Buddhahood. So these are the Vajra, the body, this is the unified Vajra, body, speech and mind. So in this summary, Buddha Rinpoche explains to us how we can go on the path, not doing negative actions, and develop complete virtue, taming our mind completely. These are the teachings of the Buddha. Thank you very much. So now we're doing the dedications. So it's 28, 29 and 30. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. O powerful Chinrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. May the Buddha Dharma flourish and it upholds us have long lives. May all sentient beings arise into happiness and their temporal and ultimate goals be fulfilled.